Welcome to Yautja, home of the Yautja. Can I take your order?
You did that very well.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am not Josh Scar, and today I'm here with not Alex. This is Antonio of the Cultworthy with my co-host of Back to the Balcony, Justin Henson. Justin, how's it going?
It is going fantastic. This is going to be kind of an awkward moment for us where we're taking over the Talking SMAC. So I don't know how this is going to roll, but it's going to be a good time. And I can't wait to get into discussion about Predator Badlands. So it's going to be a lot of improv here, I think.
And it's going to be funny to have Josh edit this because I don't think he's seen the movie yet. So we're going to say right now, like, spoiler heavy, but now he gets to edit our conversation that's spoiler heavy. So by doing this, he's essentially spoiling the movie for himself. But hey, he asked us to do this. And just to kind of like get the audience in line with us, since they only know us through our guest spots, we were supposed to do like this kind of like group review with Josh and Alex, and they all had things happen personally, some illnesses. I think something to do with like a cat that either is being celebrated or mourned. I can't remember what it was. Whatever it is, I hope the cat is doing well. But yeah, they asked us to do Predator Badlands between the two of us, and that's what we are doing.
I'm still upset I didn't get a choice between Josh and Alex, and you just assumed I'm the Alex. Thanks, Antonio. Appreciate that.
Hey, I'm the one that's hosting the recording session, so I'm the Josh.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. I'll give
I'm
you that
the Mary,
one.
you're the Rhoda, if anyone gets that reference. Excellent. Okay, so Predator Badlands. So I've had the honor of doing a review of Prey on their show, and then I also was able to do Alien Romulus on Talking SMAC. So I think that I've got like just a little bit more depth of field in the realm of the Alien Predator franchise. And I got to do Godzilla -1. So, you know, I think the creature feature kaiju is in there as well. But you and I haven't really talked about Predator films or Alien films for that matter, other than just like a few little snippets in some of the Siskel and Ebert reviews. So I'm actually quite unfamiliar about your opinion of either franchise. So before we jump into this, what is your history with that? Because in the 100 episodes we've done on Back to the Balcony, we've never really talked about either.
Well, here's kind of the deal is Aliens, the first two, amazing. And I think you and me share an appreciation of the third one when it comes to style and appeal. When it comes to the Predator movies, this is where we're going to get into it, where I have an appreciation in kind of the back half of the franchise, where it does reinvent itself. But the first two are going to be classics to me. They are ones that really do hold to the kind of the 80s feel, the early 90s feel. But it kind of lost its way when we started introducing the Alien versus Predator piece of it. And I think studios really didn't know what to do with it. And at the end of the day, they're all campy fun to an extent when it comes to the sequels. So I actually secretly love all of them to a different level of standard. Even the Alien versus Predator ones, I'll turn them on as a guilty pleasure at night just to watch them. But we're going to get into it. But I have a new love with what Trachtenberg is really doing with his last three Predator films.
Yeah, okay, we can get into that because I'm kind of in the same boat. For me, I mean, like the original Alien quadrilogy, right? That is my bread and butter when it comes to that franchise. Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, and Alien Resurrection. Those, I think, are a perfect amalgamation of that franchise. Once we kind of break off into the Prometheus and the Alien Covenant and Romulus, it takes a different turn that I'm not a huge fan of. But at the end of the day, I'm a huge fan of the creature and the mythology and the lore. Predator, however, I think is more interesting than Alien in my opinion, because there's a personification behind this species, where xenomorphs are really more of like a hive mind, a collective, an ant farm that, you know, has a little mouth inside a big mouth and bleeds acid. The species is interesting, but there is a character drive behind the Yautja, behind the Predators. And I think the first film is iconic. Predator 2 is my favorite. I just talked about it with another guest on the Cultworthy. It's in my list of top 10 favorite sequels of all time. I like Predator 2 better than Predator 1. It loses me with the Alien versus Predator franchise. Just, I'm going to say an execution, but I love what they do with the makeup and the creature effects and the skill sets and the weaponry. Like, I'm still bought in to the whole mythology and mythos of the character. Shane Black's The Predator is probably my least favorite entry in the series, and I can get to the why in a second. Trachtenberg absolutely brought it back with Prey, and now we have this entry. And here's the thing that I think people have to understand. If we're going from the Siskel and Ebert approach of this, don't go into Predator Badlands expecting Prey Part 2, because it's not. And he's been very vocal about it's not Prey 2. This is just another installment in the Predator legacy, but don't think that it's a continuation of what he did thematically and tonally with Prey. And I think that's going to be a mistake that a lot of people make. I've already seen it on Letterboxd in the reviews. You've got lots of 3.5 star and above reviews, and then a lot of just straight across the board 1 stars, because they were expecting Prey 2, and that's not what this is.
It really isn't. This one is a PG-13 film, and this is like the first Predator family film, I would say, if you're above the age of 13. It's more of an adventure film. It's more of a journey film, almost a buddy road trip film. But what I think when it comes to Alien versus Predator, or the two films, I shouldn't say Alien versus Predator, the two films, Aliens left enough breadcrumbs in the first half where it left an intrigue to it. When we get into Prometheus, those were the lullaby alien films where you can kind of just fall asleep to as they go along their journey. Those are my fall asleep movies when it comes to the Alien franchise. Here, Predator, I think, is getting it right, where it isn't getting enticed to open up the book. It's not opening up everything to the culture of what our predators are. They're giving us a little trail and little hints here with every movie, especially in the last 3 films. I was a huge fan of the Hulu Killer of Killers that Trachtenberg did. That it was absolutely cool. And you can tell with his 3 films now, he's leaving enough breadcrumbs to open us up down a journey to. And even with the 3 films, he has a different style in each. We have a lot of grays, a lot of mist and Prey. We have the animation of the second one. And here we have almost a brighter tone of that adventure tone. He's almost attacking genres here with Predators. And it is absolutely refreshing. You can't go to a studio and say, we're going to make the 8th, 7th, 8th, whatever it may be, installment and say, we're not going to go full blown. We're not going to blow it out of the water. We're going to take it down a notch to a PG-13 rating and introduce it to maybe a new audience, maybe introduce it to a more subtle, empathetic predator that's going to open up another direction of where these creatures can go. And I think that's where the Alien franchise made a mistake, is we went and it really opened up a book to something nobody really wanted in the style of it. Here, we're getting a new style, a fresher look, and it does appease fans and it will appease new audiences. Even if you've never seen a Predator movie, this guides you through something newer, something fresher. And I was absolutely impressed by it. And I have to admit, I was not sure of it walking out of the theater because I was satisfied, but I'm like, that seemed really safe for a Predator movie. But I wasn't disappointed. I think it did rush the second half of the movie when it comes to the humor, when it comes to the action of what the first half built to it. But at the same time, it was still entertaining and a fun ride.
I think you hit the nail right on the head there about the accessibility of what this movie is for people. I think my biggest problem with the Ridley Scott's reinstitution of the Alien franchise, Prometheus and the Alien Covenant, is I feel like he wasn't making those movies for audiences. I feel like he was making those movies to try outdo himself of his first entry.
Mm-hmm.
And it bogs down in useless mythology, and it's retconning so much of the lore. And here's the thing. I think lore is so important for real fans of these franchises, the same way that lore was really important with Star Wars fans until Disney bought it, right? Like Lucas used to have that clause where it said, okay, you can make a Star Wars video game, a comic book, a novel, what have you, but it has to follow the canon of the expanded universe. And then when Disney bought that, they're like, yeah, we're not doing that. That's just like the old Star Wars. This is the new Star Wars. But people were so hungry for Star Wars, they just swallowed it, right? And they continue to swallow it with every new series that shows up on Disney Plus. But no one was asking for a retcon of Alien. And I think that's where there's a lot of people like me who will appreciate the majesty and the spectacle, but get pissed off at the breaking of the norms that the mythology set up. But this doesn't do that. Like the Predator series hasn't taken that far of a leap yet. And I think what helps is the fact that they do try to characterize these creatures, the Yautja. I think Shane Black was kind of onto something by giving that particular predator a personality and then having the hunter of predators, the predator of predators. And even in the Predators film with Adrian Brody, you do see distinctive personality traits. And that's part of it. Like there's the hunter, there's the warrior, there's the defender, right? Like it's almost like Vikings, there's a berserker, right? They did different classes of these things. And that's where this film really kind of goes into play because we're dealing with an angsty, teenage, runty Yautja. It's an angsty predator. And as I was watching this movie, I'm like, oh my God, this is like a John Hughes Predator film. You've got this angsty, wisecracking, something to prove teenage predator. And then about a third of the way through the film, you give him a wisecracking sidekick in the form of an android played by Elle Fanning, who essentially she wears her like a backpack. He says that she's a tool because Yautjas hunt alone. So she's not a person. She's just a tool. And I love that. And as it builds that character dynamic throughout the movie, that brings a lot of life to this character. And I tell you, it took me 20 minutes to get what this movie was doing and for me to accept it, because I'm aware of the Predator comic books and the novelizations where there are personified Yautja. They have dialogue, but we haven't seen that in a movie yet. So someone who doesn't know the comic books, the video games, or the novels probably found that very abrasive at the start. Like, oh, these guys are talking. They have a language. They speak to each other. They have families. They have dynamics like this. And it's like I said, it's a real Viking kind of thing where it's like weakness must be cold. And they've got like the real Viking lord looking father of the clan. And they got the protective older brother. And then we've got our main character, Deck, who's, the weak one. But after I understood what this movie was doing, I bought into it. I was like, okay, this is not your regular Predator movie. This is something different. And you're either going to like it or hate it, but just let the movie take you where it takes you. And I think if anyone is listening to this who hasn't seen it yet, of course, we already said spoilers, but approach it with that attitude that this is something you haven't seen yet. And don't let your pretentiousness of what Predator movies have been get in the way of letting the story do what it's doing. The story it's telling, the characters it's building, and the fun that it wants you to have with it.
I think that's absolutely spot on, because I would say let's keep the other Predators in the back of our mind, but keep these three last Predators as a new beginning, because we take the vision. And this is the first Predator movie where we get almost an inside look of the culture, zoomed in where it doesn't go overboard, where we just get enough to have this character arc of Deck where we see a little bit of vulnerability. We see a little bit of empathy. We see a little bit of the want to have a bond outside of this culture. So, and it never overstays its welcome when it comes to giving us too much. We are focused on Deck, on how he's representing a vulnerability outside of his clan. And this is something we haven't seen before. And I think it's a very appropriate to have a PG-13 movie when it comes to the subject matter of this, because there's a lot more depth to this other than kill, kill, kill. What's going to be the next cool death scene we're going to see? That's what makes this absolutely refreshing. Is, yeah, at times it does go over the top with some of the humor and the dialogue, but this is the first time we're getting a zoomed in look when it comes to dialogue with our Deck or Predator character. We're seeing some emotion from this. We don't get a character arc with any other Predator movie except for this one. And it is absolutely necessary, because who knows where it's going to go from here. But it sets a great precedent of what is going to happen next. And I'm excited for it. Is I hope they don't unleash the book of this culture or go too cheesy with it in the next installment if that is going to happen. I think we continue this journey where we continue the character development of Deck, and we go on 2 to 3 more movies before we get an unraveling of the Predator. So my fear with this is that it's going to go too quick, and it's at a perfect pace right now, especially again with Trachtenberg visiting different genres in these last 3 movies. I think he has the proper vision of giving a unique look in different perspectives of genre with our Predators to take different journeys. And everybody's going to interpret that a little bit different based on how we connect with each individual genre. And I think this one is the one that really combines all of it to have a universal feel of family bond, these outcasts that find each other. So this one, I almost applaud the PG-13 rating when it comes to the vision of where it wants to go. So this one is where it's going to really separate itself on what we've seen from movies past, where monsters, aliens don't have to be killing machines. This one is going to be the transition of Predator movies that can still hold to the tradition of the past, but take us into new territory. This is a movie that made me excited for what's to come with the next one. And I hope Trachtenberg tackles it.
Well, what it seems like to me, because like he has Prey, and then the next project he's working on is Prey 2. Now, I'm not sure how close of a follow-up it is. I did hear rumors that Amber Midthunder is returning in one way or another to that sequel. And this one, if it does get its own sequel, I don't think will be a Prey adjacent movie. It'll be adjacent to this one. Whether it's following Deck, because they do leave it up to a cool, funny little silly sequel setup, or it's just close the book on a joke, right? Who cares? It worked for me. But I think that he's very smart in having like 3 very distinct different kind of Predator stories that are all under his belt. And he can be as leisurely as he wants or Disney allows to be able to leave some breathing room behind these stories. Because after this, I might not be immediately ready for a Predator Badlands sequel, but it's making me salivate for the Prey sequel that I've been hearing about for the last few years since that one came out. It's really, really smart if that is what their intent is they're going to let you play in this intellectual property, but not bog you down with the same thing over and over again, which is, I think, what Alien's problem was. It's like, regardless of what it is, it's xenomorphs versus humans in a survival story, right? That's what all of them practically are. They try to make it a little bit more philosophical and esoteric with Prometheus. Covenant was just kind of garbage, and it kind of tried to create its own mythology. Didn't work for me. But with this, like, it'll let you have breathing room in between. I think that was great. When you were talking about the fact that we don't need kill, 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 remind the audience members, there are no humans in this movie. It is all androids, Yautja, and then the creatures of this planet where Deck has gone to kill the Kalisk. This kind of, essentially, it's like the Grendel of the movie, right? Where in order to prove himself to his father, he needs to go kill this thing and bring back the trophy that shows that he is worth being admitted back into the clan, even though he is a runt, even though he's a weakling and should have been culled, so to speak. So you kind of build up that hero's journey moment. It really does have a lot of Beowulf in it, in a sense, which I was totally cool with. I'm like, we can Beowulf the shit out of this thing. I'm great with that. And the characters that they introduce in the terms of like the life forms on the planet, the alien, the flora, and the fauna, I think was very fascinating. We've seen hints of it in other Alien and Predator films, but this actually made it an actual part of the story and a part of the utilization of his environment, which the Predator species, the Yautja, have always been very tech proficient and reliant, right? Arnold almost comes almost belt for belt, weight for weight with the Yautja in the first one once all of its tech is gone, right? It's still stronger than him, but he has a chance. Danny Glover as well in part 2. Like, we do see that without their tech, they are just kind of big, tough guys, but they do have weaknesses. They do have vulnerabilities. And what this film does is like it introduces all this really neat tech that you think he's going to use to survive on this planet and kill this Kalisk. And within moments, all of it's taken away, with the exception of like his plasma sword and his little spinny guy. But all the cool weapons that they show at first, he loses at the beginning. It's almost like playing a game of Resident Evil where you got all the great weaponry and then the bus blows up and now you just have a gun, right? And that's what it made me feel like. I was so invested in the stakes of that. It was great. And that's where, when Elle Fanning comes in as this broken android, I'm going to get to that mythology in a second, she essentially is just another weapon for him. Before I go on a tangent, what was your feelings immediately about the Star Trek-y universal translator mechanism to let these two have dialogue? Were you resistant to it, or did you just go with it?
I was resistant at first because it's one of those that is just cheap, inserted, easy, but I get it. How are you going to have these two characters interact for the rest of the movie? And I think this was easy. This was easy for Trachtenberg and Eason to write in, saying, you know what, instead of having a human trapped on this planet, let's have an android. That way it's easy to have a translation device.
Right.
And let's build upon that. So I can't fault it for that, because to build a movie, it makes sense. But at the same time, there is the inner child of me that says, let's build a character dynamic with body language. Let's build it with interactions. Let's like Enemy Mine. Let's have that interaction, that campfire scene of them learning each other. Extend the movie by 15 minutes and have that moment of interaction of a human element. But I can understand that we don't want to introduce, and with Trachtenberg's previous films, he's smart enough to know we've had humans in the last two. Let's try something different. And I hope to God it's not to intersect with the Alien universe. I hope to God he doesn't add anything more to it, because I think this one doesn't need crossovers. This one needs to stay the course. So I was hesitant, but at the same time, I get it. But I wanted more from it. But that's my nitpick.
That's your nitpick? See, and I was totally fine with it. Like, I was hesitant at first, and then I had to compute why. Okay, first of all, it's a Yautja, and they're solo creatures. They don't bond, right? So that would have been problem number one. And then problem number two, you just said it. We've seen that story before. We've seen the Enemy Mine and the dances with wolves and all that other, fish out of water, different cultures trying to communicate and make sense. We've seen it before, and we didn't need that 15 minutes of time of them trying to study each other. Also, there's no exact timestamp on this thing. So this could be way, 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 way in the future of the Weyland-Yutani company. And it's doing what I've always said it should have done for the longest time. One of my biggest problems with the Alien franchise after the Sigourney Weaver quadrilogy is, why the fuck are we sending humans out there still when we've got perfectly capable androids with zero loss of human life? Like, why are we sending humans to these dangerous planets when we have synthetics that are perfectly capable of doing it themselves? Because the synthetics end up taking over anyway, right? And this answered my question right from the beginning. I'm like, oh, of course, it's the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. So they're going to send nothing but synthetics and create this little environment where they can study and interact, and of course bring back bioweapons, but there's no loss of human life. My biggest nitpick of the Alien franchise, they literally fixed in this Predator film, where yes, we do have synthetics running the show. So when they do get killed by a Kalisk, who cares? And they are absorbing computers. Thea, the main one that Elle Fanning plays, she essentially knows every dynamic of every bioorganism on the planet. And she helps him figure it out and study and kind of create weaponry. And it's really cool. It's like bioweaponry. He hacks the planet later on in the film. And because she taught him how to do it, like, that makes so much sense. It really covered up a lot of the nonsensical elements of the movie that they did that. Like, that was such an intelligent move from the writers, and then the way it was directed, that we don't have any dumb humans making dumb mistakes. We do have synthetics taking a little bit more human emotion and accountability than we've seen in the past. But that also makes sense, because It shows that as we're trying to make synthetics more human, they are going to fall prey to human things like ego and eccentricity and betrayal. And so, this movie about Yautjas and synthetics, I was totally bought into the dynamic because it fixed all the things I hated about dumb humans in the franchises before, but it makes sense that these synthetics do it because they're trying to be more human. I thought that was a brilliant play on the writer's part.
Well, it was brilliant. And it goes back to the point of with Deck using our synthetic as a tool, right? We couldn't have that as a human. It would be spending more time explaining and even at times probably contradicting the intent of the culture of Deck of he has to be the only one to hunt, right? But I think
Right.
when it comes to the synthetic is I think it was smart but goofy, but it makes sense where you probably had humans go down to this planet, but when you finally realize that even grass is made of glass or metal shards, you're like, I'm out. Let's send robots at this point because even the weeds are trying to kill us. So
Right.
I think that was a brilliant add-on. It's a little cheesy, but you know what? I was bought into it because again, holistically, every element here makes sense to the decision the filmmakers and our writers made is to make it just kind of an adventure story. We would see that in almost cheesy family films of every placement of something that seems unbelievable has an explanation. And you brought up, and I'm glad you did, the time element. And that's kind of my problem with the Alien films is there's so many fucking timelines going on that even with the last Aliens film, Romulus, that I'm just like, I don't even want to try to keep up with it.
Right.
Is
And
I want to
they contradict timelines that have already been established in the franchise and expect you not to notice.
100%. And here we don't have the intent to really focus on a timeline and not have us care because like Predator 2, we get the vision of the ship with Danny Glover visiting the ship with the skulls in the background where you have the alien skull, the human skull, and little Easter eggs of other sci-fi movies. Here we get a T-Rex that's pretty cool. Our eyes are glued to that T-Rex right when it comes up. And it
Right.
almost makes us excited for things to come, where it almost mocks itself saying, you don't know what we're going to do next. Here's the tease. Here's our skull trophy case. We can go in multiple directions. So just ignore the timeline. It doesn't matter. And it really doesn't matter because it doesn't distract from the movie. We just go along with these characters. Alien, we're trying to put the puzzle pieces together to see when this is placed or what happened in between because it's all over the place. Here, it doesn't matter because we know these creatures, especially, and I think Trachtenberg does a great job on Killer of Killers of just placing that in the middle, saying predators are all over time. It doesn't
Right.
matter. Stop trying to track the timeline.
Well,
So
and how about the fact that this film doesn't take the stupid amateur way out and wink and nod to previous Predator installments?
love that.
Every stupid alien film that's come out in the last 15 years has to pay some kind of lip service or homage to the original film or Aliens. There has to be a catchphrase from Aliens. There has to be a nod to the ship or the technology of the first one. This one doesn't. It doesn't have any references. Like there might be a little hints here of like the technology and things, but no one says a Predator tagline or a catchphrase from previous installments. It's 100% self-contained, and I don't think that the filmmakers, or maybe they do, or the studio realizes how important that is to super fans. Where it's like we don't need the lip service. We just want the characters and an original story and a way to make this feel like it can go on and not keep repeating itself. Like I thought that was so brilliant and so refreshing.
Well, what's also refreshing is that this is the prime example of turning the tides, flipping the chapter of something to feel fresh with intent. Because you even brought up earlier that in the original 1987 film, we had the Predator stripped of technology and Schwarzenegger had some stakes with it. Here, when we get to the climax, we have technology against the Predator. The tables are turned, and he has that character arc where he has to rescue quote unquote, maybe the alpha, the family, whatever it may be. He wants to be the alpha to create his own pack, and he has to go up against human technology. And I thought that was absolutely brilliant. If it was any other sequel or film, it would have been higher stakes. It would have been better gadgets with the Predator. That's not what we get here. It's a complete opposite from almost any other sequel we've received in the Alien or any franchise that goes this long. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, like I got worried for a second because there is a secondary android that Elle Fanning plays. So Thea is the one that plays compadre with Deck the Yautja, who lives on his back. And then there is a twin version of that, and her name is Tessa, and she's kind of like the leader, head scientist of this group. And they have, at first I thought the two of them had a symbiotic relationship, but you find out that's not true. Thea is essentially a secondary unit to Tessa, and Tessa's running the show. But she thinks that there is a connection, but it's all kind of just implied in a way of control. It's a gaslighting technique, which shows just how far these synthetics have come. And then there's a moment at the end where I felt we were going to have a power loader versus Queen Alien moment. That's the closest nod to the franchise. It's not a Predator franchise, it's from the Alien franchise, but it does it on its own originally enough where it's like, okay, this isn't just lip service to the power loader. This is more of like a mecha versus kaiju fight. And that's why I kind of gave it a pass. If anything, it was more Pacific Rim than it was power loader versus Queen Alien from Aliens. And I dug it. I really, really dug it. Now, there are cartoonish connections in this movie where there is a little, let's say it's the Mogwai of the film. There's the little, I'm not going to give the spoiler part of that away, but there is a little creature that follows them around. And I'm going to say it's cute. It reminded me of the little monkey alien from Stephen Hopkins' Lost in Space movie, but a little bit more dangerous. But it has got big eyes and a cute smile, and it follows them around. It's very Star Wars-ish, and I see that in a lot of the reviews. I didn't hate it. Like I said, I think by the time it shows up and starts doing its thing, I was already kind of bought into what this movie was doing, and I accepted it at face value. So when the resolution of this creature and the connection at the end comes together, which I had figured out right away, but when I finally saw what it was doing, I was cool with it because I was already built into the dynamic this movie was building, and it was cool. And the little it's not a post-credit sequence, but let's say the epilogue of the film kind of brings to fruition that character, and it really is a lot of fun. And I really think that that's what made the Deck journey so important, is that he can still be a predator, but he learns the difference of like the wolf pack mentality, and we've seen in Prey the wolf get hunted by the feral Yautja, who I think to this day is probably still like if not my favorite, my second favorite of all the hunters. City Hunter from Predator 2 is my favorite of all the predators. I think Feral is my favorite. I think Deck is its own thing because he's breaking away from the traditional pattern of these hunters. He is instead in creating, through teamwork that he never wanted to begin with, the idea of like, oh, this can be a wolf pack, and the alpha isn't much the hunter as he is the protector of the pack. It's a very out there and stereotypical cliche and plot point, but it works in this situation, and I was totally cool with it. I thought it was great.
I think it's a great message, especially you brought up the wolf example of it, and I was going to bring that up because it shows a cultural divide, and it shows a piece of solve of that, of when you're secluded in one's culture and not seeing examples of how things can work outside of that box, is you're set on one ideology. And I think that wolf example that Thea gives is absolutely brilliant because in nature, especially, predator is used in a lot of context, right? But when it comes to nature, the wolf one is an example of a natural predator who hunts to survive. And this one, when it comes to predator, is a hunt to prove yourself to your culture. So I think when Deck really connects the dots to what that means, I think it's a big moment. And when Deck gives that example towards the climax, it makes everything almost tie together, even with the very marketable monkey that we see, that I rolled my eyes to when we first saw the introduction of the chase scene, where I said, you know what, this is going to be the one character to put the humor in this movie, and it's going to be cheesy and overdone. But I think they handled it very well with two aspects of it. Is this monkey doesn't get a lot of screen time. It's inserted when it needs to be inserted, and it supports the exact dialogue that Thea is responding to when it comes to the alpha of a wolf pack. Because if it's just the two of them, it doesn't really prove that point other than just a partnership. When you add a third, that's where you're going to get that family. And I think Trachtenberg does the exclamation point at the end where we do see that final shot of the three of them, right? And it really does make an excitement to it because there's a deeper message to it where we see all the Predator movies. This one, again, to my previous point, goes to outside of the box where we're not seeing a predator as a predator. We're looking at different contexts of what a predator means. So Deck is seeing himself not as a hunter or a predator, but somebody that's part of his own clan, that's set as a different expectation than what he's used to, than what Deck is used to throughout his growing up in that culture.
Agreed. Okay, so we kind of come to the conclusion of this conversation. I think it's a very interesting film to kind of review because of the few amount of cast of characters of this film. It literally is Elle Fanning and then Deck, who's played by Demetrius Schuster-Kaloa, who's a stuntman. And I was watching the making of, like, he's wearing the suit, and much like, let's say, a Jar Jar Binks or Roger Rabbit, his face was exposed and he was delivering dialogue and interacting, and then they just kind of CG'd the Yautja face on him. I thought that was a brilliant move because it did have a lot of personality to it. You could see the performance not only through the suit, but through the CG. I was actually really impressed because generally I'm not a fan of that kind of technique, the uncanny valleyness of it, but it really worked here. And I feel it's extremely experimental for this particular genre because they haven't done this with a Predator yet, where a Predator has dialogue. Like, how do you have dialogue? And she makes joke about it. She's like, okay, so are you talking with your big teeth or your little teeth? Like, what are you doing here? Like, she's trying to understand him. And I think that's kind of brilliant. And it helps kind of build that camaraderie between the two of them. But these two legit carry the movie. There is an actor who plays multiple synthetic drones. And I think that's kind of cool too. But there is, like I said, that it's definitely an example of how you can be economical with your characters and with your actors and with your storytelling. You're telling a big story with very few people, very few actors, very few characters that we really invest in. And I think that's what makes it work, because one of my biggest problems with Shane Black's version is you got all those mercenaries, and one's the funny one and one's the stuttering one and one's the tough one. Like, I'm tired of that dynamic. We don't need to flood the film with characters and all their interesting personalities. The fact that this is kind of like a trio, this is like a Three Amigo situation where each one of them has their own distinct personality. That was a very smart move for me. And I'm glad they didn't flood this film with characters and let us focus on what people really care about. And that's the Predator, the Yautja.
I 100% agree. And I think what works with our Deck character is three different elements here. Is one, it's in the look, the design. The eyes are a little bit smaller, a little bit more sunken in. They're a little bit more brighter. And we even get the intro that he's lost his fangs in the beginning of it. So I think the character design is smartly in place. But what I really did enjoy and what really supported this was we don't get those swift movements of a Predator that we've seen past, those quick head behind the shoulder cuts, those quick edits to where the Predator is going to look in a threatening manner. Here we get slow moving shots to support Deck's character, where he will maybe snap his neck to look at something, but the camera is slowly adjusting to him. So that is something where when you don't have a lot of dialogue, you have to tell the arc of this character in camera and in movements. And this is where it's almost flawless, where we see an empathetic character, an alien here that we haven't seen before. And it is purely in the editing and direction, where we have to embrace this character solely on how we view him. And so I think that is the magic of what comes together on telling the tale of Deck here.
Yeah, and it's a big leap for the Predator franchise, and it's a big leap for fans and audience members to accept. But I'm telling you, if you just go with it and accept it, I think you're going to have a much better time than you think. Don't just poo-poo on it because it's not my Predator. It's not my R-rated violent film. I think that Dan Trachtenberg should be celebrated for being daring enough to tell a different kind of story in what my opinion is an aging and kind of flailing intellectual property, right? Like if it wasn't for Prey, I don't think anyone would give a shit about this franchise anymore. And I'm starting to feel that way about the Alien franchise too, because I'm not a huge fan of Alien Earth. Like they're floundering, you know? This, I think, is putting it ahead of the Alien franchise because they are deciding to do good storytelling, but also likable characters. Not everyone needs to be an asshole, and there doesn't have to be a philosophical meaning behind everything. And I think that's what made this one so entertaining for me. And so with that, go ahead.
I think it's not floundering. I think it's milking an idea to death, where we saw it with Star Wars. We're seeing it with Marvel. Is when you introduce TV shows and you're at that point, because I'm not a fan of Alien Earth either. It's overdone. When you're just nailing it to death, that's when nobody cares. It's when the actual big moment when it comes to theaters again, nobody cares. Right. Here, it's keeping the story going. We're not showing and telling up front. We're still leaving those breadcrumbs to something bigger or something more unique. And again, this one could have gone that route. This one could have gone to the generic aspect, but instead it took it down a notch, said time out. We're going to tell something a little bit safer, but a little bit more edgier when it comes to what audiences want. And it just works when it comes to overall storytelling and filmmaking. All the elements here work.
I mean, I think the thing that's really the determining factor for me is that every time I watch a new Alien film, I'm like just begging the film to give me the satisfaction that someone fixed it, right? Oh, good. This director fixed the problem. They fixed the issues I've been having with the franchise. I don't feel that way about this. And I didn't feel that way about Prey. Like I didn't watch this with like, oh, please fix what's wrong with Predator. It didn't. It did its own thing. And I'm excited for the next one rather than being skeptical of how they're going to fix it. And to me, that's like one of the biggest endorsements I can give, where it's like, I'm not begging for this franchise to be fixed. I think it's fine. I think that this is exactly the right direction that it should be going in. And I think Trachtenberg's the right guy. I'm not saying that give him the whole universe like they did with James Gunn over at DC, because I'm skeptical on that. But whatever this guy's doing with this particular path of the Predator franchise, let this dude work. Like, let him cook. I'm happy with it.
No, I think the moral of the story with the last 3 Predator films is just to say, keep going. Right. Like you said, do your thing. So don't follow the tradition of failures past, because the failures are up front and center of what we've seen from franchises. And again, with the last 3 films, he's shown the example and he has the idea to move this forward. Don't show us everything all at once. Drag it out. And I won't say that with a movie very often but drag this one out, because the one thing keeping the Predator franchise alive is the journey of breadcrumbs and what new ideas are coming to the table. Where we saw this franchise start to dumb down is when we got the Predator, when we got those generic ones of just a pure monster movie. Right. Keep with the new ideas and keep changing the genre to feel fresh.
Indeed. Okay, so, the SMAC boys, they have their own like little rating system. I say like, let's do like a smash or pass on this one. Predator Badlands, are you smashing or are you passing?
Oh, I'm smashing on Predator Badlands, 100%.
Yeah, I'm smashing. I'm going to smash again. I want to go see it one more time on a bigger screen. I saw it on my just like little local brew pub scene, which is, it's a good screen, but the movie is dark. I think we have to remind some audience members that a lot of it takes place in the darkness and in the night of the planet. And if you had an issue with that one episode of Game of Thrones in the last season where the entire battle was all at night and people said they couldn't see shit, that happens a lot in this movie. So see it on a nice bright screen, because I know I missed some cool shit on my somewhat dimmer brew pub cinema scene. So yeah, I'd say go find this on a big screen that's nice and bright. I'm going to try and see it in IMAX if I can. I want to see it one more time just to respect the majesty of it. So
see it again on a big screen, because I saw it on RPX and it was absolutely beautiful. The cinematography by Kerr, I think it is. Now I'm brain farting. Anyway, but the cinematography is fantastic. And to me, I think it looks fantastic on the best screen you can see it.
Awesome. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you for putting up with us while Josh and Alex are off taking care of their family situations. We appreciate you. Please give Talking SMAC a like and a subscribe and a follow and review. Share it with your friends. And please follow us as well. Justin and I co-host the show Back to the Balcony, which is a Siskel and Ebert retrospective. We are just about to hit episode 100, so go back and listen to some of the past ones, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and then you can find me and my show. I'm Antonio, host of the Cult-Worthy Cinema Podcast. You can find all my stuff over at thecultworthy.com. You can find my friend Justin Henson over at
themoviewire.com.
Josh, Alex, thanks for letting us take over. We had a blast. Hopefully next time we'll be able to talk to you guys about another cool movie. Maybe it'll be another Predator movie. I'm not sure. But that's it from me. I'll see you later.